Welcome to Court Explainer from Court Helicopter News in 2026, where we are dealing with this question of Maduro, Venezuela. Everybody has been talking about international law. Everybody is condemning America that they have broken the international law. What is this international law? Lawyers know what the international law is. Do you know what international law is about? I want to give the historical perspective to the coming of why we talk about international law, because before we deal with international law. In 1917, 1918, there was the First World War. After the First World War, countries came together and formed what is called the League of Nations. The League of Nations was to ensure no other world war occurs. Some of your parents went to fight in the First World War. Some of your relatives never came back. Very many people had died. From Kenya here, several Africans, several Kenyans went to the fight of the First World War. It left a serious wound. Skirting out of that First World War, the League of Nations was created. This League of Nations was to ensure no war again erupts that will be all over the world. But what happened? The war erupted. The Second World War started. The Second World War started. Germany, the Roman Empire, that is the Germany, the Russians, the Americans, the British, the war came up to here. Countries suffered. Populations were killed. Millions were killed. Very many Jews were killed, exterminated. And out of 1945, atomic bombs were thrown. Generations to generations, the nuclear was used. 1945, after the World War ended, countries sat and said, we have got to get a new order. A new order that will ensure there is not going to be a third world war. That is when they created the United Nations, the UN. You see it at Gigiri here. Do you know how the UN came to be at Gigiri? Do you know what the United Nations means? It is a government, an international government created by the international law. This international law is what is called the United Nations Charter. The Charter is the law for all countries in the world, those who have signed the Charter and those who have not signed in the Charter. In the Second World War, many countries invaded other countries. Germany invaded Morocco. Germany invaded Russia. Russia invaded Ukraine. Very many countries invaded other countries. So in the discussion, in the Charter, we have now the international law, which everybody is saying Donald Trump has violated. I want us to look at Article 2, Article 1 of the Charter, which is the United Nations Charter that creates the United Nations. What does Article 1 say? Article 1 of the Charter says the organization is based on the principle of the sovereign equality of all its members. The sovereign equality of all its members. America has 51 states. It is a whole continent. China is a big, big continent. India is a massive country. Lesotho is a tiny country with not more than 2 million citizens. Under Article 1 of the UN Charter, Each country is equal regardless of its population, regardless of its size, regardless of its wealth, regardless of its development. Article 1 makes all countries equal. So America is not superior than Kenya. Somalia is not inferior to Kenya. Don't ask me whether that is practical. I'm only teaching you the law that each country is equal. What does that mean? Each president is equal. Trump is equal to Ruto. Trump is equal to Ramaphosa of South Africa. So there is no superior president under Article 1. Each country is equal. Practically, it is different. But legally, that is the position. And that is why whenever there is a UN General Assembly, each president is given time to speak, because you are an equal president, you are an equal country, and each sovereignty is respected. Under Article 1, we move from Article 1, where we have said each country, each president is equal, and each sovereignty is equal. There is none that is bigger. Now we come to the question of the attack. Article 4, that is Article 2, sub-Article 4. I'll read it very slowly for you. All members, those are countries. When we talk about members, we are talking of countries of the UN. All members of the UN shall, and we talked about that in law. Vivian remembers it very well. She still reminds me that shall is mandatory. Any member of the UN shall refrain in their international relations from the threat or use of force against the territorial integrity. So, every member of the UN, whenever dealing with any other country, that's why international, any country shall not interfere with the territorial integrity. The territorial integrity means the boundaries of each country. Article 1 of the Constitution of Kenya provides for the territory called Kenya, both land and to the oceans and to the seas and the water bodies. So you are not allowed as a member of the UN to interfere with the integrity of the boundaries of another country. So Kenya cannot interfere to enter into the territory of another country. So when you hear President Museveni talk that Uganda extends to Nakuru up to the Indian Ocean, he should be told to read the UN Charter, Article 2, sub-Article 4. Integrity, territorial integrity is protected. Therefore, there is no way the American president, the American government, can enter the territory of Venezuela without authority of the Venezuelan government. Every aeroplane that comes into Kenya must be allowed to enter into the territory called Kenya by the Kenyan government. Every time any foreigner comes into this country, or any time a Kenyan travels to another country, you must get a visa, authority to enter that country. You cannot enter the country that is not yours. And that is what Part 1 of Article 2, sub-Article 4 of the United Nations Charter, that is the international law, talks. It moves on to say, or political independence of any state. The political independence of a state is exemplified by the government of that state. In Kenya, the political independence of the state is the Kenyan government, headed by the political head of the country called Dr. William Ruto and his deputy, Professor Kindiki, and his cabinet. That is the political head of a country. The political head of the US is President Donald Trump with his deputy president and his cabinet and his officers. The political independence of Venezuela is President Maduro and his deputy and his cabinet. So no country is supposed to interfere with the political independence of any state. That is the position of Article 2, Sub-Article 4. So, Trump had no reason to interfere. What are the provisions to allow one to interfere? If one wants to interfere with another country, there are provisions that we are going to deal with that allow a country to interfere with another country. But Article 2 protects the sovereignty of countries. Article 2 protects the equality of countries. Therefore, it was wrong, constitutionally wrong, internationally wrong, under the UN Convention, it is wrong. But it has happened. So once it has happened, what is the recourse? Remember, court helicopter's duty is to give you what the law provides in the event this issue arises. We have highlighted why it is wrong in international law to interfere with a country, the boundary of another country. We have said it is wrong to interfere with the political establishment of a country. Free. It is protected under international law that no one country can capture the territory of another country. We have seen this in Palestine. We have seen this in Israel. We have seen this in Syria. We have seen this in Somalia. We have seen this all over. It is not your duty to interfere with the boundaries of another country. So Trump cannot say he can run Venezuela. There is no way another country can run another country. This was what was there during the colonialism, when countries from Europe, from other countries came and colonized countries. The anti-colonialism law, the Convention Against Colonialism, is in place. So Trump's concept of running Venezuela is not anchored in Article 2 of the international law. But that as it is, we are dealing with the question about might, the question about who has the military power, who has the mighty to control. This is what used to be there in the Thomas Hobbes theory of the law of the jungle, where whoever was mighty could take anything. Whoever had power could take anything. This was the phenomena in the First World War. This was the phenomena in the Second World War, where empires were expanding. It was not only there. In African history, we know kingdoms that were expanding. The Baganda kingdom, the Oyo kingdom, the Hausa kingdom, where whoever had enough soldiers could move in and grab territories. But under the 1945 international law, that the boundaries were settled, and therefore, if Trump imagines that he can sit and govern the natural oil reserves of Venezuela, that situation will not be allowed. Wakili Danstan Omari giving you the second episode on what the law talks about, international law, and we have looked at the history that brought about this international law and what the international law. We shall be moving to the third episode of now what is called the Security Council. The court that is going to deal with this question is called the Security Council of the United Nations. Keep watching. Wakili Danstan Omari and Court Helicopter crew wishing you all the best as we enter a new dramatic year where presidents are being kidnapped, even with their wives, from bed. It has never happened with a bed, but it has happened, as Wakili Danstan Omari has told you in episode 1. It is a normal occurrence. See you in the third episode.